Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, conservators of all ages, you are about to join the greatest comic book conservation live show in the 1218. Please join me in welcoming the conservators.
Howdy, gentlemen.
How's everyone doing?
Good.
We got the full team.
Excellent.
We do.
We got Jack.
How you guys doing?
And
Jack is. We got Jack, and he brought Shelby along.
Very nice.
He was sleeping.
They're
They all
back
had their
still.
stinky wet food about an hour ago, and all of them were napping out. But he heard me talking and had to come get in on the action.
Yeah. He's kind of an attention whore, that guy.
Oh,
Well, we should say Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers
That's
who are watching
right.
and aren't
We
watching.
have all you Mother's Day. Yes, Happy Mother's Day.
Special shout out to all the mothers, especially the MILFs, the GILFs, you know. Really sincerely, Happy Mother's Day. It's the most important job and one of the least appreciated. So that is very genuine. I don't know if any
it's a
mothers
comic
will
book
watch
conservation. It's being a mother.
this. I don't know if any mothers will watch this, but I hope somebody does and somebody hears that.
It is a very underpaid job.
There you go.
So it's conservation.
Jason was a little bit confused about what today was.
Mothra.
Pretty close.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah,
close.
close.
Yeah. I am, as ever, Dr. Paul. What's up, y'all? Coming at you from an undisclosed location in the Texas Hill Country with Liberty Hill Comics. I am thrilled to be joined by my great friends this evening. You know him well, Phantom Phil from Phantom Comic Studios on Instagram and at phantomcomicstudios.com. Coming to us from, I'm just going to say Brooklyn, baby.
I mean, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That's what it says on Facebook. So
It's technically
Yeah,
true, right?
he's gonna move uptown to Manhattan pretty soon. So
when you say Queens, people say Astoria, or I'm in fake.
Well, you say, well, Queens, Bronx, all those places have stories. So.
Yeah.
And you know him, you love him, Captain Larry from Flying
You're
Elk
coming
Comics.
from home.
I am at home.
He's actually in
Yes.
California for once, and you can find him at flyingelcomics.com, here on the YouTube, Flying Elk Comics, and Instagram, of course. How are you, Doctor?
Easy to find.
Doctor, how are you, Captain?
Captain, no, we call each other Doc. I'll
Doctor,
pass
Doctor,
another airline pilot in the terminal. Hey, Doctor. No, I'm doing good. Last week you guys saw me. I was really struggling. I was sick. I was running a fever during the show, but much better now. Everything's good. Now I'm just trying to catch up on comic books and normal household stuff. I did a brake job on my truck today, so
Nice.
I'm doing that kind of stuff daily. But
the dealership wanted $2,000 to do my brakes, and I did it for like
yeah, you're like,
$200.
I can put my kids through college, or I can put the mechanic at the dealership's kids through college. I guess I'd rather put mine through college.
It's kind of my feeling on it. Yeah, with money invested elsewhere.
Yeah, and
Shelby,
our returning champion, my friend, Dr.
Undefeated.
Shelby
Jack.
Thompson. He
I
prefers
am
to
the,
Shelby.
I am the fourth musketeer, or I'm Ringo. You know, what I'm curious of is, captains on the sea can marry people. Do captains of airplanes get the same?
we do not.
As long as you're in international air.
Yeah, ship captains have that privilege because they're at sea and international waters. Even if I'm in the air over international waters, my airplane is registered in the United States, and that therefore I am in the United States. So no, I do not have the power and privilege of marrying somebody, which is probably a really good thing.
I mean, you could do like an online course and get accredited in like
Sure.
an hour. So
I don't want that responsibility.
I wouldn't want it either, actually.
No.
It seems like I don't take a lot of like stuff that seriously, but I feel like if you marry somebody on some level, you're kind of responsible for their marriage.
Yeah.
You're responsible.
Find Shelby at Shelby's
Good.
Comics here on YouTube, Instagram, and Jack does not yet have his own account. I think mostly because Shelby's afraid he would have more followers than Shelby does.
That could
would.
very well happen, yes.
Yep.
Oh my God, he's so an attention whore right now. He just like I said, he just woke up. They all got their stinky wet food about an hour ago, and he just woke up. He was hiding in one of the boxes.
I just gave my guys some catnip, so hopefully we won't hear any meowing at my door later. I'm hoping that'll satisfy them for about an hour and a half.
We have an
They're all
amazing show.
stoned.
Yep.
These do not like catnip that much. Like the love of their stinky wet food.
If you've been under a rock for the last week, maybe you don't know about our thumbnail book, but it's a record-breaking book. It's super exciting, and we have a great show to talk about it. And I'm pumped for it. So I think we should get right in. Before we do that, let's thank this show's sponsors. If you're watching this
We have
live,
a bunch.
you're catching it ad-free. Thanks to these gentlemen, Jim Collegier, Collecting Chaos, Gorilla Monkey 3K, and Sales Boy Comics, who reminds you to keep it moist. And I want to say we just have had so much support for the show. I'm so appreciative of it. Everything we get, we put back into the show. So it's very much appreciated and hopefully benefits everyone. We already have super chats for this week from Jim Collegier, who says, good evening.
Thank you very much
for all the content and the activity on the Facebook page. That is, for you boomers that are on Facebook, that is the comic book conservation community over there. And super chats from Don Carter, our regular contributor, Gorilla Monkey 3K. Thank you all so much. Let's say hi while we're at it to Collecting Chaos. Jason, the Archivist Adrift. JCP is back. Thank you. Welcome. Don Carter's here. The Professor Peter Alachi's here. And we also have AJ.
Aubrey.
Thank you, Aubrey, for joining. This should be an exciting show. So we're going to kick it off a little bit differently than we normally do. We often start with an A block that has auction results. But since the auction results kind of are the finale here, not the appetizer, we're going to start off with a deep dive into Action Comics 1, the creators, what it meant historically, what it meant culturally. I'm then going to take over and we'll talk a little bit about the population, the census. We'll talk about the auction result. And I have a would you rather for everybody. So there's only our thumbnail book is a Action Comics 1 7.0 Conserved. And when we do sort of valuations, we like to say, well, what would a 7.0 Universal be worth? There's only one in the census, and it's never had a public sale as far as I could find. So there is no sort of comp. We would be guessing anyway. So we're going to do a would you rather, and I think that'll be fun. Welcome, Cardtel. And with that, let's jump right in.
All right, this is me.
That is you.
So
It is you, Shelby.
Who is the artist here, Shelby?
Oh, the greatest Superman artist there ever was, Kurt
I was
Swan.
about to say, yeah.
Okay.
The most distinguished Superman artist. Let's say that.
Did he just skip abs and legs for a few decades while Kurt was working on them, or is it just
No, it's a perspective shot.
He's like the premier. It's like the campy, Superman. No offense.
I mean, when I think of Superman books, I think of those great covers, that were Kurt Swan and had, the weird, it was like the story of the week, right? Or the month.
Sure.
Well,
I'm familiar. I just don't think I have the same emotions toward it that you have.
Oh, I mean, come on, look at that jawline and
What
got that
about?
perfect
I
S
mean,
curl.
why don't we just start this off right
Let's
now?
go.
Who is your
Okay, who do you
favorite
think is the
Superman
best
artist?
Superman artist?
And
Number
why
2
is it
John
not
Byrne.
Kurt Swan?
Number 2 is John Byrne, of course, but
I mean, John Byrne's up there for sure. I like John Byrne on Superman. What about George Perez though?
but he never did
yeah.
Superman. He did Justice League, and I agree. He's super great.
The cover,
I mean,
wait a minute. The
cover of Crisis of Infinite Earth, and the way he Superman of Earth 2, I mean, amazing. But he didn't do Superman. And when you think of people with long runs, classic covers, when you think of that quintessential Superman that everything else I felt like was based on, that anyway, that's
I mean, he had a long run, that's for sure. What about Neil Adams with the Superman Unchained?
Yeah, that one of his covers just went for $1.5 million. That classic image of him breaking the chain.
Yeah,
I agree.
like
there is probably 3 to 5 classic Neil Adams covers, but when you look at really the amount of time he spent on Superman in the 70s is a very short
for sure
period.
I'm gonna throw a wild card. I like artists that have a unique kind of take on a character where you look at it and oh, that's that artist. And I think someone that really revitalized Superman in the last kind of 20 years is Frank Quitely. And I think his look is I think it's almost an iconic look. It's like,
but it's very Kurt Swan.
It's powerful, but also he was the artist on like the most popular Superman run in the last 20 years, All-Star Superman.
All-Star Superman is great, but it's very Kurt Swanish, and that's why I like it, because look at the jaw, the cheek, the chin. I mean, come on,
you gave me you reminded me of someone else I love on Superman. That's Ed McGuinness, actually. Speaking of somebody who puts his own stamp on the character, I loved Ed McGuinness Superman.
Good.
Somebody, you plucked my last comic says Adams, and I was thinking, what if it was Art Adams? What about his Superman? That would be pretty sweet too.
I think we're talking Neil Adams here.
Yeah, no, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I'm sure Art Adams would have done a good job.
Yeah, and Kirby was good with when he did Jimmy Olsen and such. But if you actually look, we redrew a lot of his faces because they didn't like Kirby Superman faces.
I can see that.
And
all right,
I was thinking Jim Lee too, Peter. I was trying to think if he had a long run on him or not.
The professor says Kurt Swan captured the complex dynamic emotions. I'm sure.
Well, we're
Kurt Swan, Kurt Schaffenberger.
We were talking about Neil Adams for a second, and I had to go grab this. This is a one-of-a-kind thing that I have. If I could have the screen here.
Oh, yeah. You got it.
This is what we call an editor's proof. It's a one-of-a-kind. It's just a single sheet, which was basically the printer sent this to the editor to get it, and this one happened to be signed by Neil Adams. So at the time, CGC wasn't doing any grades for signatures or anything. It was pre-JSA.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked to Matt, and he said to send it in. They may start doing something with this. So
that is neat. Thank you for sharing.
But I don't know if that's public information. That was between Matt and I, but now it's public. But possibly they're going to, because CBCS is done, grade something like this, just as a single sheet. Nice. They may treat it as art. They may not. They may not grade it at all.
I would leave it just as it is. It's perfect.
Why shouldn't they?
Yeah.
Let's see. JCP says, "How about Kirby with Adams Inks?" Yep. You plucked my last comic has a vote for Adams.
Yeah, Jim Lee too.
Kurt Lloyd, welcome to the show, says Kurt Swan all day. So you got some support here, Shelby.
Oh yeah. All right, let's get
Professor's
into
pointing out
it.
is Jim Lee. Yep. All
I
right.
know we're going to get into some great discussions here. So, I did what Paul asked me to do last Sunday, is to hurry up and get this out to him. And so I worked really hard on it. And one thing that's always fascinated me, because I have done some videos on this topic before from the creator's point of view. And the way the whole Action Comics #1 came about is such a great little story. And so I titled this The Accidental Blueprint. Go ahead to the next slide, Paul. So it's February 1935, and Colonel, as he was called sometimes, Malcolm Willard Nicholson, created or published New Fun Comics, which was basically the origin of, starting of DC Comics as we know it today. In December of 35, he did New Comics. And then in March, and New Comics evolved into Adventure Comics, which ran, of course, till 1983. Man, 503 issues all the way from 1935 to 1983. Long time. Yeah. In 1937 of March, Detective Comics was published. And at this point, he was very in debt to the printer, Harry Donfeld, and brought him on as a partner. And then, of course, Batman wouldn't premiere until 1937. So,
issue 27 in 39.
27. Yeah. So Action Comics, by the time it was published, Wheeler Nicholson was not even part of the company anymore, over a lawsuit and a $5,000 debt to the printers. And so Donfeld took over the company with a person called Leibowitz. And so April 1938 is where we're at. So only the fourth book published by what we became known as DC Comics.
The fourth title. They had many issues, but the fourth title.
Yeah. The fourth title, correct. So we can't talk about, of course, Action Comics #1 without the creation of Superman. I mean, and I talk about this later in the presentation, but it's very difficult to divorce the book itself from the creation. And we can discuss that later on. Would Action Comics be Action Comics, if it weren't for the creation of Superman? If Superman was to have shown up in something else other than Action Comics, would it still have the same gravitas as it did then? And my answer to both is no, and it wouldn't.
Yeah.
But the two creators met as teenagers in Cleveland, Ohio. They had put together Superman around 1933. And of course, everybody knows about the fanzine that he had done, in like senior year of high school, Reign of Superman with the bald villain and things like that. But really by 1933, they had flipped everything. They had pulled from other sources, and the basic blueprint of what Superman was to be: an alien hero, a champion of the oppressed, has a secret identity as a reporter, and this moral framework was really all in place. They weren't looking to publish Superman in a comic book, right? They were looking for newspaper syndication. And the reason why simply comes down to money. When you have other characters such as Dick Tracy, Flash Gordon, Little Orphan Annie, I think also Prince Valiant was it?
Prince Valiant was huge. Tarzan.
Yep.
Yeah. And
they were getting paid somewhere between $1,200 to $16 a week just for licensing. Yeah. I mean, that is huge back in the 1933, 34, 35 time period. And so a syndicated strip could really just create yourself a whole career. They endured 5 years of rejection. No one wanted to publish Superman in the newspaper. About the time of 1938, they were talking to a group called McClure Syndicate and Sheldon Meyer. And he thought it's great. It's the next big thing we're looking for, but he still couldn't convince his supervisors that Superman was a worthwhile property to publish in newspapers. And as a matter of fact, I did not know this story, and I found it and found several references. Joe Shuster wondered maybe it's because of the art, and he was actually hunting around for other artists to collaborate with Superman. And when Siegel found out about this, he burned all the original Superman art, and only the single cover that we know of today survived, which is that Reign of Superman and such. But anyway, Sheldon Meyer suggested they have a phone call with Max Gaines. Gaines was informed Siegel that the Clear had rejected Superman. Could he forward them to Leibowitz, which was their DC Comics or Detective Comics? So they accepted that offer. They wanted to publish a new book, Action Comics, and they were just looking for any kind of material to put in there. And they were trying to focus on original material this time versus the reprints, which we've talked about quite a bit in other shows. Unless you got input, you can jump ahead.
Yeah, so Max Gaines was publishing stuff in parallel, and then eventually published all the All-American comics that I'm obsessed with, which were co-marketed with DC eventually. So he played a role here, interestingly, but didn't actually have a financial interest in DC at the time.
Correct.
Right? Yeah, so I think
correct.
That's
he just kind of put the two together, like, hey, you're already doing work over here.
Right.
I think they were still,
You know, Max Gaines is an interesting cat because he was definitely like collaborative and trying to like cross promote others and etc. But then there was that point when he was basically forcing them to buy him out, where he actually took the DC logo off the books for a few months, and yeah, I think he's a really interesting character, and the role he played here is kind of interesting to me.
Yeah.
Hey, and just for those savvy comic book connoisseurs, if you recognize the last name Gaines, it's not unfamiliar. That is a little bit of nepotism within our own industry, and it just goes to show how not really far removed. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree within families and occupations.
I was about to say the same comment, Phil.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. So based on the popularity of the anthology series, remember comics were anthologies back then, man. They were made up of all these different stories, all put into one book. There were 2 to 5 page stories, sometimes a little longer, like the Superman story. But they wanted to, build upon the popularity of Detective Comics, which was up around, 10 or 11 issues by this point. And they had titled it Action Comics. To fill out the page count, which was all they were really trying to do, Leibowitz asked Siegel, could they turn the newspaper strip? Because this is important, and I'm going to show some examples of this. Superman was in that 5-panel newspaper strip format because that's what they had put together to try to sell to newspapers. And so Leibowitz literally asked, can you cut this apart and turn it into a 13-page story? Mm-hmm. So they did cut apart the newspaper strip, reassembled it. And this was interesting too, that I just discovered. I thought Shuster had probably done most of it himself, but there's some other people that were perhaps involved. Ben Sullivan, Sheldon Meyer, and Harry Lampert were all cited as having assisted with some of the paste-up work.
I'm sure they would have had editors involved in helping expand that, right? So Action Comics 1, this is early Golden Age, so it's 68 pages.
64, 68. I think 68, yeah.
68. And
I think it's 68.
It includes both sides of the covers. That's like how they do the page count.
Yeah, the way that the Grand Comics database counts them. That's how I usually count them, just so we're consistent. The inclusion of the strip in expanding it into a story is unlikely enough. But the part that I think is crazy is the fact that it ended up being the cover story. Because if
Yeah.
you think about it, there's how many? There's probably 10 stories in there. Any one of them could have been the cover story. This one seems like one of the most unlikely sort of possibilities to make the cover.
Yeah.
And even
I
more to
did
that
find-
point, the fact that it took until issue 7 for him to be on the cover again shows that like it's just as likely they could have picked anything. Like clearly it wasn't like a wow, they knew what they had from the beginning. It was just, it seems more likely like just kind of chance, you know.
It was a later interview done by Leibowitz said that selecting Superman for the cover was just pure accident. He chose it because it looked thrilling, and it's taken from that panel inside the actual story, right, of Superman lifting up the car. And he thought out of all the other stories in there, and it may have been maybe a recency bias, right, because Superman was one of the last stories to be placed into Action Comics to fill out the issue. You know, hey, let's go ahead and move this panel over. And, you know, that's another thing with Action Comics #1. What if one of the other characters had been on the cover?
It'd be a different world, man.
It is really an accidental blueprint, like I named this section.
Yeah.
So the photo over on the right, I just want to call out something real quick. I've used this photo a couple times, particularly in my deluxe edition of, if you haven't purchased it yet, the Comic Book Conservation. Go and pick that up. But in the deluxe edition, I actually use this because I love it. If you look at the comics over on the far left, Action Comics #9, I believe, is the third from the bottom. Adventure Comics above that is Detective Comics. But I didn't notice it until I was looking at this picture again. Look at what the other comics were. It was Keen Detective Stories and Star Comics, which were Centaur Comics that we talked about last week. And I was like, oh my God, you know, this is the landscape, the perfect landscape of 1938.
Not what I was trying to do. Forgive me. Sorry, guys. I'm so sorry.
Landscape of 1938. That Centaur was there, you know, near the top with it, just a very small, you know, amount of comic books that were kind of superhero related. Anyway,
sure.
Well, I have a question.
You can ask the question.
All right. Well, Schuster burned all the art, and except for the cover piece, does it still exist someplace? The original.
I think it's that Reign of Superman was the cover piece that's talked about.
That's of the 33 of the work they were doing in 33.
Yeah.
The Reign of Superman.
Yeah.
This is the cover. But that cover still exists. That's how we have photos of it.
Well, I mean, I was just curious, you know, who is somebody must own the original art.
Somebody does.
The one
Larry,
existing piece.
You're saying to Action Comics 1.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, I think just it was they burned the stuff that was before that got published. So if Action Comics 1 exists, is up in the air, and that would we're not.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was any
known
history to that.
There isn't any, as far as I know, in the circles I know, there isn't any definitive proof that it still exists.
And I do know who owns the earliest original art of an Action Comics cover. But I'm not.
Yeah, several have come up recently.
I'm not supposed to say who owns that. But I've seen it and held it.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to get into details whether, you know, I'm going to bring up that question here in a second, but I'm not going to get into the deep dive. I do have a whole presentation talking about the sale of Superman and things like that. What I'm just going to say is Siegel and Schuster had signed a contract with DC Comics in 1937, 6 months prior to them even discussing Superman. Their contract was of a page rate of $10 per page. Standard contract, a little bit higher than most got paid. There was no reason Leibowitz, Sullivan, Donfeld, Siegel, Schuster themselves had reason to believe Superman would succeed. 5 years of rejections actually said it probably wouldn't. Remember, every newspaper association at that time had turned it down for 5 years.
It's a lot of rejection.
And, you know, them agreeing to cut up the newspaper strip and provide it as a 13-page story was just part of their contract. Okay, it wasn't anybody and I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to get into it.
He said he wasn't going to get into it, but it felt
I've
like he
got
kind
a
of
whole
did.
thing on it. Anyway.
Yeah.
Look elsewhere for Shelby's rant on the subject.
No, I'm digging that presentation out of mothballs, and I'm going.
I don't mean to be
do it on
offensive,
one of
but
our alternate Sunday
sit down while.
stories. I'm going to do it on one of our alternate Sunday stories.
I want to say hi to Hiratan. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. It says Max Gaines' Lad published the best horror books. That is, of course, William Bill Gaines, who published all the EC books during the great period that we talked about recently. Are we ready for the next
yes,
slide?
Please, go ahead.
And Rick Gomez, welcome to the show. Glad you made it.
All right, so here's some evidence of Superman being created from a cut-up paper strip. So the first page itself, looks very disjointed, a lot like a paste up of just a quick, origin, so to speak. And then it's really odd, scientific explanations, down at the bottom right. This is probably one of the clearer evidence. Second is, if you notice on the panels, they're all numbered. After page 1, which is the one on the far left, all the panels are numbered.
Yeah,
they did this because they cut them apart and they had to keep in order where the panels fell when they were doing the cutting and the pasting. You don't see that any other place besides this issue.
You would normally only see that on the bottom right panel of pages.
That's right.
Where you'd see a corresponding number. Sometimes they wouldn't number the page, but you can infer the numbering based upon that panel and how it corresponds to the next page.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the last is, notice they actually cut some of the art. So look at the word balloons at the very bottom of the right-hand side. The word balloons are actually cut off because they had to trim some of the art panels to fit the layout. And then notice the gappage, which is off on the bottom panels compared to the rest of the book. So all this is evidence of it being originally like a newspaper strip. There is some surviving layouts of the original newspaper strip that was recreated later by Siegel and Schuster. And I looked at those, but and I was going to present them here, but several people said this was later and it may not be fully representative of what the original may have been, because it was for a foreign market that they had done this, because they could, they could then sell to a foreign market and not, be under some other contract with DC. Hey, Barbarian Kung Fu, come to me for my channel, which is also brought to you ad-free out of my own pocket.
Oh, nice.
All right. So, I'm not getting into whether they got ripped off.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Since you're asking the question, I'll go.
Is this the right decision? Should they have held on their creation?
I'll go. I see both sides of this argument. And on the one hand, it could have been a failure and then they would have been paid quite well for it, to Shelby's point. The security of having the contract and knowing that you as the creator, Siegel and Schuster here, are not really taking any risk, right? Like, you take that money, you can feed your family with it, you can put a roof over your head, etc. And you don't really have the risk of, what if it's a failure, you're going to go bankrupt, right? Like, those are not risks that you have. So I see both sides of it. I do think that ultimately it was decided in a reasonable way. And I've, you see this in a few instances where somebody's paid a page rate for something and then that thing becomes gigantically successful. And the company says, we don't legally owe you anything, but it has become basically the company's identity. It's so successful. We're going to break you off a severance and support you, and I think like something like that I think companies are loath to do it because they're like, we don't want to set a precedent where everyone expects this for every piece of content that's created. But for very special creations, and I think Superman clearly falls into that category. I think that's the best solution. But there I went. Others, please feel free to react and chime in, etc.
And I'll add this real quick again. Hopefully, Paul will let me present my whole history of that story, even the lawsuit that happened later between DC and Siegel and Schuster. But their page rate did increase. They were paid upwards of $100 a page for Superman at one point. Okay.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like they were, bound by that.
Yeah, just because they didn't get the Bob Kane special, doesn't.
I mean, I think we should keep it top level because we got a lot to present today. But I do think that's a topic, a very interesting topic for another day. Our buddy Bill Field is here. Welcome, Bill. How are you? Glad to see you in the chat. Anybody else sharing feelings on that? All right, let's roll.
All right, so I wanted to look at how, since we were talking about the auction of Action Comics #1, and it is difficult to divorce Superman, the character, from Action Comics #1, but just look at how Action 1 changed the culture. And that's something I know Paul and I talk a lot about with these comic books, and hopefully we presented it well in our book. If you haven't bought it, it's behind Paul.
It's right here. It's right here.
We actually named it right. And, in our pop culture heritage. So culture is a big thing for us. Go ahead, Paul. So what are some of the contents? The debut of Action Comics #1. Well, it had a Western story, Chuck Dawson, done by Homer Fleming, a boxing sports story done by Fred Gardner, which went on to do a lot of things for DC. A magician story, Zatara, who is the father of Zatanna.
Zatanna, yeah.
Which comes out, of course, later in the 1960s.
60s, yep. First appearance, Hawkman #4.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Historical fiction, so The Adventures of Marco Polo, detective reporter, Scoop Scallion, Scanlon? Anyway.
Scanlon.
A wealthy adventurer, Tex Thompson, no relation. Humor.
Wait. What is he after Bernard Bailey as a contributor? What is Tex Thompson?
Tex Thompson is
right there. Just read it.
Oh, oil millionaire. Stop it. Stop it. Pick on the way I say oil.
He's a businessman. He's in all.
All.
Mm.
All right. Humor done by Russ Cole. And then a text story, which, of course, they did those to be able to mail them through the post office. They had two filler pages of text stories to meet the requirements for mailing. And then some filler pages of Hollywood caricatures and gag drawings. So again, I want to point out this was the landscape of comics at this time. All right, it wasn't superheroes. We had that little bit of spattering we talked about with Centaur comics, it's like the masked heroes, caped heroes, things like that. But there was, to imagine that a character in a red and blue outfit with an S, would, be popular. This is what was popular during the time. Westerns, sports, magicians, detectives, right? The jungle adventurer,
all millionaires
were popular.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talk about the anthologies all the times. Some of our favorite, stories are in these anthologies, and it's like we're buying a 68-page book because we're interested in one 10 or 12-page story if we're lucky. And if we're lucky, the story we're interested in is on the cover, right? Like for me, these early adventure books with the Sandman and obviously later other characters that end up in the Justice Society. But yeah, they were just one story in there, sometimes two. Later, obviously, you get two spandex type stories, but the rest of it would still be material like this.
Yep.
Yeah.
So a little bit about Action Comics 1. It hit the newsstand stands on April 18th, 1938. 200,000 copy print run. Sold out immediately. No reprints, nothing. Okay. And this is a typo, I know. I said the next 13 covers featured other characters. I think he appeared again on number 7. I'm not positive. I think I have it in another slide. But the point is, it wasn't until like issue 18 that Superman became the predominant character on every cover.
Right.
I mean, that was a year and a half after the original publication that it became the predominant character on every cover, right? So that tells you a little something about them and their lack of understanding about what it was that was actually selling this book. Within 12 months, it was up to 1 million copies per month. Then by 1939, he had his own title, a newspaper strip, a live appearance at the World's Fair, 1940, a radio show, Macy's Thanksgiving Balloon, an animated serial in theaters, which was, I believe, the Max Fleischer
Studios
cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
which are amazing, by the way, if you haven't seen them.
Oh my God.
Yep. They still hold up.
Well, and
they hold up really well.
They actually filmed live action first, and then they drew over the live action. That's why it looks so realistic and
so
such.
Great. I love it.
And then, of course, the syndication deal with the newspapers was signed in 1939. But, of course, by that time, the rights belonged to National and not Siegel.
All right, let's catch up on chat here. So Bill Field says, Knucking Futz, welcome. Says the story is like the premise of Breaking Bad. Bill says, to be fair, DC paid them the equivalent of $1 million in the 40s.
And that's in the presentation. And actually, it's a lot more of that. It's closer to $10 million, $6 to $10 million, because they actually own the rights to Superboy, which they got all of the money from in that, or, you know.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Jeff Jack says, when was the art colorized for publication? I assume it was a similar process to what we know of the era, right? So it would have been done originally in pencil, then it would have been inked, then there would have been stats made, and then there would have been paint applied over the stats. And then those would be sent off to the printer for...
or copies would be made of that would then be colorized. Like the actual original art wouldn't be colored.
No. Oh yeah. No. But I mean the painted copies would be sent. They didn't then make a copy of the copy.
Yeah. Gotcha. Right? Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's okay. No, I probably wasn't very clear. First and second print. That's not of Action 1. I think Knucking Futz. You're thinking of Superman 1.
Yeah, and I actually mentioned that. I think in another slide here, real quick.
Here. Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Wildest Tent. Sorry, there's just a few more I want to catch up with.
Oh, okay.
Action 1 changed the game, not just due to Superman, but the total features and superior to Detective. Interesting. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you contributing in the chat. Yeah. Damasked Smoker says, let's bid.
Yep, looks like they're either coming in from my Chan or Captain Larry's. Maybe.
Yeah. All right, we're caught up. Go ahead.
Okay, here we go. Superman 7, thank you. And Phil was right. And then the next time is Superman 10. All right, so the first reprint of Action 1 was not until 1974, dog, with famous first editions. And that book of mine is packed up in a warehouse. So I couldn't show it, but large gold border, I believe, on that one. But yeah, the first time it was ever reprinted wasn't until 1974. Yeah. The first issue, like I said, had 200,000 copies, and nothing else was printed of that. Superman 1, so Superman did appear on the cover again in number 7 and number 10 and number 13, 15, 17, then consistently after number 19. So again, they just wasn't even sure what it was that was pushing this book and the sales figures. And so that's why you have these sporadic appearances of Superman on the covers. However, by the fourth issue of Action Comics, and this was an interesting story, and in the research I did, it was discussed a couple of times, but people do admit this could be legend, but the legend's probably pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
Is Don Feld himself, to try to find out what was driving the sales, went out to several newsstands and asked kids why they were choosing the comic, and the answer every time was simple: Superman.
Yeah.
And then they put him on the cover to 7, and when the sales doubled, like it got there, it's like they were like, "Holy crap!" That's all That's all the evidence.
Well, and even when we talk about distribution, a lot of times we think of it in terms of the 1950s, 1960s, where you have a better network and communication between printer, distributor, and publisher, and so you could get a lot of immediate feedback. You did not have that in place in 1938.
Yeah.
You did not have that communication. You did not know what was really going on, and not just 3 months later. Sometimes it could be 6 months to a year later.
Television, it was radio. There was radio. That was it. So yeah. I mean, this is an archaic time. I mean, how long were hot showers even around for at this point in time? How many generations?
There were still ice trucks delivering ice for refrigerators.
Not everybody had it.
Yeah. Yep.
There were still outhouses in the Bronx.
Yep.
All right. So sales were good, but not extraordinary until like issue 7. And that's when Superman got the cover again, and the sales doubled for that single issue. Superman #1 was the first comic that was solo. Never before, right? We talked about anthologies before then. Superman #1 was the very first comic book that had a solo story, the whole book.
Yeah. We did a whole episode on this about a month ago.
We did.
On the
now, even then, it was still broken up stories, right? There was like 5 or 6 different Superman stories. It wasn't like one continuous story that continued in the next issue, right? It was still standalone anthology type of stories that was published. Superman 1, so I did want to mention this, was there's 3 printings, and we talked about how you could tell the difference between the printings in one episode because of the one of the advertisements has on sale now versus coming soon or something like that.
On sale.
Yeah. But there was nearly 900,000 copies of Superman 1 sold compared to 200,000 of Action. Yeah, Facebook was tough back then.
It had negative users.
Thank you, Jason.
So again, I want to talk just a little bit about the culture, right? So Superman in the social consciousness. Action Comics #1, there's no villain. He faces a guy that was unjustly imprisoned, spousal abuse, disarmament, and drunk driving. This was Depression era social commentary wrapped up in a costume. In February 1940, 2 years before Pearl Harbor, Siegel and Schuster published a 2-page story in Look magazine titled "How Superman Would End the War," and this is a reprint of that here on the screen. Nazis took offense to it. So in April of 1940, Das Schwarzkopf, the official SS newspaper, published a full-page tirade accusing Superman of being a conspiracy to brainwash American children with false Jewish values. The article described Siegel as an intellectually and physically circumcised chap, spreading hate, suspicion, evil, laziness, and criminality among America's youth.
So nice for to call him a chap, all things considered, I guess.
Yeah. And then, and again, just a different time, right? The German-American Bund, the American Nazi organization that filled Madison Square Garden in February 1939, sent hate mail to Siegel and Schuster and picketed the DC's office over the publication of Superman. So, you know, it's the time in which this was, but it also reflects the popularity within culture that it drives some of this. And it goes to a lot of the Jewish American heritage too. You know, I know I sat in with Howard Chaykin when he did a panel one year here in Houston about Jewish writers and artists and their prominence within the comic landscape and the history of comics themselves.
Yeah.
So
it's fascinating work.
Howard
Fascinating. I know Bill Field has covered quite a bit of it too in the comic book historians.
All right. And then Superman 25. So Siegel and Schuster didn't actually do a response, like a published response. But in Superman 25, a spoof featuring a hero based on the SS newspaper's own mocking of Superman, they put this in Superman 25. What is cool about this is you're reading a comic book of a character reading a comic book. So if you look at the far right panel, that's the way they drew it, was inside the comic book was them reading a comic book. And I mean, come on, man. I love it. I love it.
Meta.
Yep. A lot of activism. We talked about the cover to Captain America #1 being like a really prominent example of this as well.
Yep.
All right. We're heading into the home stretch here, some of the good stuff. So, like I said, you know, it's difficult to separate the character from, you know, would Action Comics have been a $3 million plus comic book today if it wasn't for Superman? And what if Superman had debuted in something else other than Action Comics #1? What if it had gotten in the newspaper? Would it still been as popular as, you know, coming out in Action Comics 1? And like I said, my take is both no and no to each. But yeah, if y'all got opinions, please type them in. We will jump ahead a little bit unless someone else had something they want to comment about. Paul, go ahead.
We have a lot of content still to go, so let's keep it moving.
The next ones are going to be pretty fast, though. So the Legacy of Action Comics 1.
Oh yeah, this is fun.
All right. So on the population. So in 1989, we've talked about Gerber's photojournal guide to comics listed Action Comics 1 at a scarcity of 7, meaning no more than 50 copies still existed. However, CGC currently has, and this is pretty close, right? Only 44 unrestored universal grade copies. There's only 2 copies graded at 9.0 or above, which are highest known unrestored copies. Some of the sales records, I'll actually show some of these books here in a moment, but the highest sales recorded is for the Nicolas Cage copy, 9.0, which sold for $15 million to a private, outside of the auction houses last year. The Kansas City pedigree sold for $6 million a couple of years ago. An 8.5 copy sold for $3.2 million, which I think was the Rocket copy.
No, that was also one of the 9.0 copies.
What?
It might have been the same.
Yeah, it was resold.
I have a picture holding that one, the $3.2 million one.
Okay. In 2014, a 9.0 sold for $3.2 million. In 2010, this was the first time a comic had broken the $1 million threshold. So only 20 or 15 years ago. And then in 1982, a copy sold for only $82,000, setting a record at that time. So let's take a little bit of closer look at some of these. First, we're going to look at the pedigrees, I think, is the next thing. So there's only 4 pedigrees. One, of course, is the Mile High copy. This is probably the most popular ungraded book. It is not known who owns it. It has never been photographed. It's never been graded. People estimate it somewhere that have seen it, somewhere between a 9.2 and a 9.6. So every copy you see of Action Comics #1 is second best to a book that no one has ever seen or knows who the owner is.
I mean, it is known where that one
Then
is.
the owner is actually known. It's just not
Yeah.
publicly known.
Yeah.
The Lamont
Small
Larson,
circles. It's too
Larson
high
copy.
profile to not be totally known, but it's not really public knowledge.
Which we do talk about some of those in our book under pedigrees. But this one, probably one of the pedigrees that Paul and I love the most because of the L that's on the cover. And I know Paul and I both have several copies, not of Superman, in our collection that are from the Larson pedigree.
Absolutely.
But it was graded
Absolutely.
It was graded at a 6.0. But there's no known images to exist, and it's been kept in a private collection. The Bill Wright copy, which I believe is the one on the left, that is the left image. This was an interesting one. Bought straight off the newsstand. It's got the date stamp of the drugstore that it was bought from. It's great. It's great. I love provenance like that. And was kept in his basement in storage until his nephew inherited the house and discovered the collection in 2011. So sat there from 1938 to 2011, unknown until the nephew took over the house. That's great.
That's great.
And then the Kansas City pedigree, which turned up in the late 60s, consisted of about 250 high-grade #1 issues. And the Action Comics #1 graded an 8.5, the highest graded of the three graded pedigree copies, and sold in 2024 for $6 million. And that's the one that's on the right-hand side.
Kansas City is all #1s as well?
Yeah.
Is that true? I know Carson City is all #1s. Kansas City is too? That's too coincidental. That's interesting. Cool. Lovely books. I know we have a few other significant ones.
So some other significant copies that have come about into the landscape. In the late 1970s, a West Virginia family in the Blue Ridge Mountains, why they can't do DNA tests is because the family tree's a straight line. But a dealer flies all the way up and then has to take a car up a mountain to about 35 comic books that were found in a cedar chest that sat for decades at the foot of the grandfather's bed. In that cedar chest was Planet Comics #2, Action Comics #2. They later found Action Comics #1. It was not in the cedar chest, but surfaced later somewhere on the estate. The book was in such great condition when they called the dealer back up, he thought it was a reissue. He did not think it was a real Action Comics #1 because it looked so good. So it was sold in a private sale to Darren Adams of Pristine Comics, who stored it in a temperature-controlled vault for 30 years before finally getting it graded by CGC and brought to the market in 2014. It sold for $3.2 million, the first comic to break $3 million. The first bid was over $1 million within 3 minutes of the auction opening. 1% of the proceeds was given to the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation.
My small contribution to the history of that sale was I was
you were probably there at
so I was under charge of the eBay account at Metropolis Comics and Comic Connect
Metropolis,
when the sale happened. So the sale happened on eBay, and I remember going in the day after the sale, and I don't think I had known that it happened, but I logged into the eBay account to look through. It's like, you have something in your cart that needs to be paid for and checked out. And I clicked, and it was the Action Comics one. Like, you owe us $3.2 million. It was just, I remember taking a photo of it because I was like, this is such a ridiculous thing to actually see that in your portal and eBay is just so ridiculous. But then I have a picture holding the book in the stockroom when it came in, and I can attest, seeing that book in the case was surreal. It didn't look real. It looked the pages were too white. Everything about it just looked unbelievable.
It's incredible.
All right, go ahead, Paul. The Rocket copy. So this was a 13-year-old boy bought this off the newsstand in 1938, and he did this to most of his books, from what I understand. Stamped the front cover with a rocket ship stamp, his mark of ownership. When the book was sold, the actual stamp of the rocket ship was sold with it. It was the first original owned copy of Action 1's offered at Heritage since the Bill Wright copy in 2012, and the highest original owner copy Heritage had ever presented at that time. Despite the stamp, the book had white pages, vivid colors, making it one of the finest copies in terms of the interior condition. No. And those of us that have done a lot of conservation on Golden Age books, I'll tell you that is not an easy feat to have frickin' white pages or even off-white pages on the interior of a book.
Oh, it's incredible. This is one of my favorite copies just because of the fun provenance of it.
Yeah, I love the provenance of these. It was sold at Heritage for $3.2 million. The fourth book to pass $3 million mark in 2022 is sold again through Golden Auctions with Metropolis. I think that's in that stupid videos of theirs that's on not YouTube. What am I thinking of? Netflix, maybe.
Oh, Golden. I haven't watched it, but Golden has a series on Netflix, right?
Yeah, that's what I just said. Yes. It had 3 sales over just 1 year. So this book went through a lot of hands, and it increased in value every time. The last sale of this book was, oh my God.
Wow.
Where is that at? Where is that at?
Like it was used as kindling in a fire in 1939.
Probably.
Like, current. I mean, you don't have to just tell us, don't give details, Bill, but just tell us that it's still in the family or not.
But it was last sold in January of 2023 by an anonymous buyer that said, as a kid, I've always dreamed of getting an Action Comics #1 someday. Those of you
that know Bill Field knows if it's still in the family, it's not slabbed.
Mm-hmm.
He famously does not slab books.
The Wall Insulation comic, which is a little story I published in our book. If you haven't picked that up yet, what is that? That's the 4th shameless plug, I think.
Guys,
in the 1980s.
Am I on the right? There we go. Sorry.
Go back. Right
there you go. That's the
Wall
one.
Insulation copy. Elbow Lake, Minnesota. 1913, a contractor published a foreclosed house for $10,000.
2013.
During renovation, the wall was insulated with old newspapers and things like that. Inside there was an Action Comics #1. He got into an argument with his sister-in-law or aunt or somebody that tried to grab the book from him, and they tore the back cover. Stephen Fisher from Comic Connect called it a $75,000 tear. The rip dropped the grade from a projected 3.0 to a 1.5. But even with that damage, it sold for $175,000 $175,000 in 2013.
Yeah. Don't fight, kids. Yeah. It doesn't amount to anything.
No benefit.
Yeah,
tears.
This was one of the odd copies I had not heard of till I was doing this research. Called the Movie Magazine copy. In 1980, a collector wins a stack of old 1930 movie magazines at an auction. Sorting through them, he discovers a copy of Action Comics #1 inside one of the magazines.
Wow.
It had been protected for over 50 years, shielded it from ravages of time. It was also a White Pages comic. Comic Connect brokered the book for 1.5 million in 2010. It sold for 1.75 million in 2017, and it sold for 2 million in 2018. Changing hands 4 different times. In 2021, there was a private sale of this book for 3.25 million, which was a record at that time. Yeah. The buyer was a newcomer to comic collecting and was only his second major comic purchase. He had previously been a non-sports card collector. So I did not know about this copy. I thought it was interesting. Then, of course, the Nicolas Cage copy. If you didn't know, Nicolas Cage had purchased a whole bunch of comic books, and in 1997, around 1997, and he framed them and hung them on his wall in his home. The framed copies include this Near Mint Action Comics #1, which he had purchased for only $150,000 in 1997. That's crazy. Alongside his copy of Detective Comics 27 and Marvel Mystery 71. In January of 2000, he reported all 3 comics stolen. They had been mounted in frames and missing for weeks before he even noticed.
Yeah. A very suspicious story. I'll just say that. A very, very
well, except where it's found. So,
oh yeah, no, that's part of the. It's a suspicious story of how this was lost.
So the LAPD thought they had a lead on it in 2002, but it turned out just be a replica wrapped around women's underwear catalog. It's got to be one of the funniest parts of the story. And remained missing for over a decade. In 2011, it was recovered from a man who purchased contents of an abandoned storage unit in the San Fernando Valley. It was returned to Cage. 6 months after its recovery, Cage sells it at auction for $2.2 million. Of course, getting back about 15 times his original purchase price. Dealer Stephen Fisher, who originally sold the comic to Cage, noted the theft recovery transformed, blah, 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 blah. In January 2026, that same copy sold at a private transaction for $15 million, the highest paid for any comic book. Both buyer and seller are anonymous.
Yeah. This is the copy that Lisa Marie Presley owned for a little while.
Yep. All right.
Just saying.
So, what is your favorite story about Discovery of Action Comics #1? I mean, I like the wall installation, but
sorry, I like the wall installation too. No, I thought we would. Sorry, I didn't realize you had one more slide. I like the wall installation story. I think it's so cool that the Rocket copy, along with it comes the little stamp that kid owned.
Yeah,
that is cool.
That's cool.
Yeah,
and there's some other books.
Rocket.
Aren't there some other books known from his collection? So
there are.
Somebody could try to buy them,
but I didn't bring them.
It's not a full. It's not considered a pedigree, but there are other books, right?
Right.
Yeah.
There's only 4 pedigrees. You and I talked about that this week. You had sent me a message, and I was like, that's.
Yeah, Dr. Paul. Actually, it's that Rocket stamp is very similar in terms of quantity, or at least seemingly quantity, is that Anchor stamp that we initially had looked over. Where it was just one of those. It didn't have books as high profile, but there were still some big books that had that Anchor stamp on it, which are interesting to note.
All right.
So, like kind of been a theme here in this is the relationship between Action 1 and Superman. And hey, even though I might not be able to pronounce "ol" correctly, I think I write pretty damn well. And this is
what word are you trying to say? What's the word?
What was that word?
How do you spell it?
At this point, I think we're going to do auctions.
OWAL. OWAL.
Oh, like an all. Okay.
They're actually Sorry, go ahead. Finish that thought.
Yeah, but I think I do write pretty damn good, and this is probably some of the.
I'm a
best
big
work.
fan of Shelby's writing, and he knows it.
Yeah, this is probably one of the best things I've probably written. But the relationship between Action 1 and Superman is not simply a relationship between a container and its contents. It's something more reciprocal and more complicated. Each one made the other possible in ways that could not have been predicted at the moment of publication. The book needed Superman to survive. Without him, Action Comics is a forgettable anthology of cowboys, boxers, and magicians. But Superman needed the book just as urgently. In ways Siegel and Schuster never intended and could not control. The newspaper syndicates had rejected the character for 5 years precisely because they could see what he was: too strange, too powerful, too far outside any existing narrative category. The inseparability goes still deeper. What we call the golden age of comics is not really the age of Action Comics #1. It's the age of what Action Comics #1 provided was possible or proved was possible.
No.
That is what Action Comics #1 is to me.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
So there's an interesting conversation going on in the chat. I would like to discuss here a little bit. And so Jason is asking if there's any chance they're any more out in the wild. Are they all accounted for, seeing as they were never actually? So, I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, the book we're going to be talking about was kind of an unknown copy. It had been locked up for 30 years.
Yeah. Okay. I apologize. I thought that conversation was about something else. Let's take it and make it about something else, just very briefly. I was hanging out with some dealers recently, like really experienced people that have been dealing for decades, and the conversation came about how many Action 1s are there that are still unknown, and I made the argument that they're almost all known. And my argument is just one of kind of like, it's actually statistics and mathematics. Like the number of the years between discoveries of new ones is getting longer and longer and longer. And it's basically almost approaching where there's, one new copy is found every 5 years. Soon enough, it'll be one new copy every 20 years, right? The way that it is sort of exponentially increasing the time between discoveries.
And so copies that have been showing up have actually been in private collections for years. They just people didn't know they were in private collections.
Well, some, yeah.
Yeah. So I make that argument, but again, it's more of a statistical argument. I don't have real evidence other than the gaps between discoveries, right? But I was talking to a very experienced dealer who's been dealing professionally for, I don't know, maybe 4 decades, something like that. And he said, I actually believe there's a lot more that are sort of quote unquote undiscovered. And I said, well, why do you say that? He said, because I can tell you 40 years ago, like in the 1980s or whatever, when you went to cons, first of all, there was an Action 1 at basically every convention you went to. And the bigger cons, there'd be multiple. There might be half a dozen Action 1s at a bigger convention. And his argument was all those books got squirreled away in boomers' collections, and they won't be known or they won't be quote unquote discovered until those folks pass away.
Right. Which was the point I was just making. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the truth is, but I think, I'm humble enough to say that's firsthand knowledge. It was not
uncommon to see an Action Comics 1. Go ahead. I didn't interrupt you. I apologize.
No, it's okay. I don't know if everybody has a good connection. We have a storm passing through, and it's a little
you're a little
broken for me.
I was going to show, just while we're chatting here, just for everyone's viewing pleasure. Hey, there's a picture of that iconic the image. And then
that is the image we talked about. Yeah,
because I'm not going to pull it out, but since people are here now, I mean, it's not often that we get to have one in person, and I'm going to be disassembling this one to remove tape. And that's been approved, and maybe Color Touch if it's I'm ambitious and this is allowable. But holy crap, guys! Here's one of the copies.
Wow.
It's
a raw one.
As far as I can think, if I live to be like 80 or 90, I will look back in time and remember this. This is one of those books that I think
Has
should be
that
in a
book
museum.
always been raw?
I don't think this was a previously graded restored copy,
Okay.
but I truly think that no single, like, people shouldn't get to own a copy of this. Like, we're allowed to, but there's so few of these. This is so culturally iconic. It's so in any condition, and this one is very restored, but the interior is unbelievable in this copy. You know, it's just the cover that's restored. It's remarkable. Any copy of this is incredible, and I'm very fortunate to get to even be holding this one right now and sharing it. So
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
and
share that. Figured it was a good opportunity to show that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know what Paul's presentation is going to consist of here in a moment, but I'd sent him some statistics. I mean, there's as many restored copies out there as there are universal grade.
Yeah. Why don't we jump into it?
let's jump
I mean, we've
into
already been an hour and 15. This won't take us a super long time. So here's the book that sold in the last week. And again, unless you're living under a rock, you know this book came up for auction on Heritage. You probably already know what it sold for, but we're going to talk about it anyway. Before we jump into it, here's the census that's been mentioned a few times. 44 universal, 38 restored. Median grade is actually exactly tied between 4.5 and 5.0.
I mean, that's overall median grade. If you go back, Paul, what I had shown in my statistics, of course, was the median grade for universal only is 3.0, but the median grade for restored is around 7.0. Now, of course, if you take the average of both of those, then that does come up to a median grade across all types of copies as a 4.5. But I think it is important to note that in universal only, the median is 3.0, but the median for restored is around 7.0.
I'll have to double check that. I may be wrong.
You can see it right there in the blue. You can see the blue. You can see the big line at 3.0.
No, I can see the line. Yeah, but I think I don't determine median visually. I mean, you kind of can, but there's also the population's much higher to the right of 3 than it is to the left as well. Like you can see,
but only because
4 copies at 4, 4 copies at 5.5.
Right, but only
4.5,
because of the number of restored grades, which is what I was.
Well, let's put it. Let's put.
Yeah,
we
we
can
put a pack.
One of us is wrong, and I don't
yeah,
think
that's what I was
need
trying to show
determine it
you
here.
in the extra slides.
Yeah.
I sent you.
No,
Yeah.
we'll figure that out. We'll get back to that. Here's universal counts. Again, we talked.
Oh, Dr. Paul's a little in and out right now. He's got a
Paul's
storm
frozen.
He's dealing with. Oh,
That's what happens when you live in an undisclosed location in Texas.
yep, that'll do it.
Well, Texas Hill Country is known for its storms.
Yeah, I have a
So-
storm passing through. Listen, if
Oh,
it
you're-
gets
yeah.
bad, one of you guys can sign off for us, and we'll pick it up next week. If it gets,
Oh, you're back there for
Well-
a second.
Well, Phil can control the slideshow, can he?
I can.
Yeah, Phil can control it. Shelby, you can actually do it, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, this is an interesting statistics, and I didn't know there was so few of comparison by the Detective Comics of only 30 copies. Compared to the action, and I'm sure Detective 27 had a probably pretty good
Print run. It did, and that's one of the arguments that people have about why Detective is maybe not, at least based on auction results. Action's
Right.
still worth more, but it's just because it comes up more often.
Yeah.
Because there's just more copies, and people that have Detective 27s generally want to hold on to them and don't seem to let them go as easily as people that own Action ones. Oh yeah, it seems that when when Dr. Paul left, his slides left with him.
Uh-oh.
I didn't
Yeah,
know
it's
that was
just
a thing.
us. So
We might have to call it.
yeah,
and,
I think we're
resume
gonna have
it.
to call it since
an hour and
he's
20.
gone.
Well, we'll give him a few minutes,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, we'll
so
give it
one of the
a-
questions I did present to Paul this week, and we can talk about that a little bit, is why do you think we see so many restored copies? I mean, 38 compared to 44 of restored to Universal, respectively.
Well,
I thought that was an
I think
interesting statistic, and
Well-
I thought of a couple of reasons why. One is the importance of the book and wanting to have more, I don't know, I want to say nicer, but it's culturally relevant to have something that is a bit nicer, I think, for that copy. And then of course my second was it was the 80s. People put paint and markers on.
Well, that's where I was going to go. There was an era of
Yeah.
time where restoration, it was in sad shape. Restoration was perfectly acceptable. Painted covers, I mean, all sorts of crazy stuff that we are now trying to remove as conservators.
Yeah.
But yeah, color touch is probably one of the worst things. I've seen paint, like literal paint, put on covers, and it looks beautiful. It's like the book that Phil was holding up earlier. It's color touched. I have no question about it, and it's probably paint. So it's like an artist level color matching and things like that. They made a very presentable book, and it looks wonderful in a slab. So, but now you're going to take tape off of it. So I'm assuming it's interior tape.
Yeah, it's mainly just because of what was done then. So unfortunately, that moment of time made many copies of a book like this susceptible to having work done on it, because they wanted to make it look as nice as they could, and they had more of a desire to restore than conserve, which is unfortunate, but understandable. We get it, but now we look back and say, unbelievable.
And I think also, let's talk about the difference between action.
Shelby, I don't want to totally cut you, but we're at an hour and 22 already, and with Paul gone, just because he has the slides.
We're starting to run over.
Yeah. Let's just call a put a pin, since there's enough information to go probably for an A segment for the not next week, but the week after that.
Week after.
It is an action one. It is a big enough book that deserves a little more attention. But Shelby, I loved your write up. I definitely learned more about this.
No, I did a great job, Shelby,
and things that I had no idea about. Well done.
All right.
All right.
Thank you all. Had a great time.
Thanks everybody for watching.
Yeah, as Dr. Paul says, everyone, thanks for tuning in, and take care of one another.
Yeah, we'll see you next week.
It's weird to say that. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. All right, bye guys. Now I guess we just have to figure out how to end the stream, since we left.
That's going to be up to you, Phil. I can't smile like this forever.
Hey, you know what? It might be we just all have to leave.
Yes, I'll leave.
Yeah, I think that might be.
Yeah. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See ya.